Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut is calling for legislative action to stabilize rates and provide long-term stability for students. He joins us now from Capitol Hill. Senator, good morning.
Good morning to you. Thank you.
Can you tell us, if you had your way, what would happen with student loans? Because the rate for new loans is set to double starting July 1st, affecting about 9 million students if no action is currently taken.
Speaking very realistically, if I could dictate the result, it would be for a short-term extension at 3.4% interest rate and a longer-term, more comprehensive plan that sets interest rates way lower. In fact, tying it to the rates that the big banks pay when they borrow from the Federal Reserve discount window. You know, you have to start with a fundamental premise here, which is, and it's my premise, the federal government should not be profiting from student loans. Right now they profit, even at the 3.4% interest rate, at about $51 billion a year. And remember, these young people going to college are the ones we're counting on to buy new homes, build families, start businesses, which they can't do if they are financially crippled with this debt.
Senator, you said two different things, though. You said you'd like to see the rate way lower and that you'd like to tie it to the rates that banks, for example, pay. Those are two very different things, because to keep the rate lower, you're ultimately going to have to fix it. And if you fix rates, for the most part, that means taxpayers are going to have to pay the difference. For example, about an $8 billion difference at the moment.
My proposal is to set that rate at the discount window rate. Right now it's less than 1%, 0.75%. So you could also put a cap on it. So if it were tied to that rate that the banks pay the Federal Reserve, it might vary slightly, but it would be essentially cost neutral to the taxpayer.
But Brookings poses this very question, which is to say, this doesn't actually come down to the difference in some of these rates, which they calculate might affect payments by about $33 a month. What it does point to, though, is the need for the government to get out of setting rates for products like student loans, and that's a hard thing to quibble with. There is really a lot of risk here, ultimately, if you're going to dictate and guarantee to students that they'll be able to pay a low rate on these loans.
I think you have to view student loans as an investment in our future, and not just their future. These are our future scientists, entrepreneurs, purchasers, consumers, and if they are crippled with $1.2 trillion in debt, our entire economy and our future will suffer. And one more point here, you know, this debt is now the biggest debt that we have in the consumer area, and it is rising exponentially. It's feeding on itself. So that's why I think taxpayers have to bear part of the burden, and why setting those rates at a cost-neutral level for taxpayers is the best way to go.
Senator, are we basically then stuck with a package that will be voted on after the break and be made retroactive? Is that the best we can hope for?
I think the best we can hope for, a very good question, is that rates will double on July 1, and then the Congress will return and try to do the best it can, apply those rates retroactively. I think a short-term solution at 3.4% is the best that we can hope for right now.
So any parent with a kid enrolling this fall, you would tell them to wait before signing anything, I imagine?
I'd urge them to call and write their Congress people and say, we ought to be outraged. All of America should be outraged that we're profiting off the backs of your sons and daughters, our sons and daughters.
But, Senator, to say we're profiting is actually not necessarily the case if we're paying the cost of keeping these rates lower than they otherwise would be.
Well, we're not at the moment, because that 3.4% enables the government to reap $51 billion from those students.
Okay, we still need to solve this issue longer term, and these loans remain the one form that can't be discharged in bankruptcy. Tons of issues here, and again, a deadline that looms. Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, sir, thank you very much for your time this morning.